Good morning, this is Mabel Navarez, and I will be showing you how to do a tutorial on how to create a simple calculator application using Visual Studio with Visual Basic. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is open up Visual Studio. So, to begin, we go to File, then we select New, then from the options, we select Project. In the left pane of the new project window, we look for the category Visual Basic, so we select that. And in order to create our simple calculator application, we choose Windows Forms application. On the bottom where it says name, location, and solution name, we just choose name and in order to give our project a name. So I am going to call mine Simple Calculator. Now we click OK. Okay, so we wait for that to load, which could be any day now, any year, any day. Okay, now that everything has loaded, one of the first things that you notice is the toolbox. And here we see some of the common controls that people use to create applications, such as a button to click on, a combo box, radio buttons, a text box to input information, a label to designate where information is. Okay, so first we're going to stretch it. Then here is our form, which we'll be, putting these controls on. Okay, so first I'm going to stretch out my form to make enough space to put my controls on. And I'm going to change the title of my form from Form 1 to Simple Calculator. So now we can go down to the lower right hand side, and here we will see the properties box. So we scroll down to the text property and we change the name from Form 1 to Simple Calculator. And we hit enter. And you see that Form 1 changed to Simple Calculator. Okay, so now we can start putting our controls. I am going to put 2 labels. This one will designate where, the first input should be placed, and this one will indicate where the second input should be placed. Then I'm going to put a text box, and I'm going to put another text box. Both of these text boxes will be where users will input numbers to be calculated for the Simple Calculator. Okay, so first I am going to change the text from label 1 to a text that lets the user know to place their number in the text box. Okay, so we go down to properties again, and then we look for the text property and we change that from label 1 to enter your first number. Okay. Then I want to align the text box. And we're going to do the same thing for the second label. We're going to go to properties, and then we're going to scroll down to the text property, and then we are going to put enter the second number. Okay, so there's a little overlap with the text box, so I'm going to move that a little backwards. And I'm going to do the same thing for the first text box so that they can be aligned properly. Okay, so now I am going to place some radio buttons. And the purpose of these radio buttons will be to allow people to decide what type of calculation they want. So what I'm going to focus on first is placing 4 radio buttons. Okay, so the first radio button will be dedicated to just adding the 2 numbers that will be placed in the text boxes. Okay. And since I'm going to be referencing them in the code that we will be writing in a while, I am going to label this radio button as add RD to stand for radio, but without the vowels, and then pt1, which stands for button. Okay, so that gives it an identification, which is under the parentheses name property. Okay, so now I want to change my text from radio button 1 to addition. So again, we will scroll down and we will locate the text property. And we will change that to addition. Then we do the similar thing for the second one. This will be dedicated to subtraction, so I will call this RD pt1. And then we go down to the text property. And we call this one subtraction. Okay, now we go to the third one. And we call this one mults. And then this one will be dedicated to multiplication. And then this one will be dedicated to division. So, okay, we're almost done with our setup. Now I need to add another label. And this label will just be to indicate where my answer is going to be. So this one doesn't need an identification, so we just scroll down to the text property. And I will call this, and I will make this one say your answer is... Okay. Now I will put another label, but I will give this one an identification because I will be using this in my code to reference where the answer will be placed. So this one will be result LBL, an abbreviation for label without the vowels. Okay. And since I don't want the label 5 text to display, I will erase that. Okay, and the last thing that is needed is a button. Okay. So I will reposition my button, and I will give this an ID. So I will go up to name, and I will call this calc pt1. And now I want to give it a more meaningful text. So I will scroll down again to the text property, and I will call this calculate. Okay, so now I am going to click on the calculate button so I can start writing my code. Okay, so whenever you double click on an object, the Visual Basic automatically takes you to the code behind, so you can start writing code. And what this is a sub function. This one is called private sub calc button. So this sub function does something when you click the calculate button. Okay, so now I am going to write several functions which will perform the calculations that I need in order to return an answer. Okay, so first I'm going to start with addition. So we always want to make our, well, not all, but it's a convention to keep your subfunctions and your regular functions as private. So I am going to write a private function, and I will call this add addition. And then I will give 2 parameters. Parameters are basically information that you pass into a function so that you can get a value returned to you. So I will call my parameters number 1 to, number 1. I forgot. So you want to declare the parameter type. So since we're working with numbers, we choose integer. Okay, now we have our first function. Since we're going to be making 3 others, I am just going to copy and paste to 3 more times. Okay, so I'm going to change the name. This one will be subtraction. This one will be multiplication. This one will be division. Okay, now we can start writing our code. First, I want to declare a variable, so we start out with dimensioning a variable. So I'm going to call this result. And then my variable type will be integer since I'm working with numbers. Okay. Since we're going to be passing in the values from the text box, I'm going to set result equal to the addition of num1 plus num2. And since I want the result returned to me, I will place return, and then I will return the results. When we do the similar thing for the other ones, we can copy and paste, this code into the other functions because each is in their own scope. So since it's in their own little realm, what the name of a variable is not going to affect what the other functions do. Okay, so now I change the signs.